Hi, I'm Nitin Manchanda, and this is SEO in 2025.
Nitin, what's your number one SEO tip for 2025?
Yeah, my number one SEO tip would be Search Experience Optimization is the new definition of SEO. We should stop thinking only about optimizing for search engines and think more about search experience as, the new definition.
Search experience. Okay. So how different is search experience compared with search engine optimization?
Yeah. So it's basically about optimizing for the user experience and not just thinking about pleasing search engine bots. And when I'm saying optimizing for experience, I'm saying do not just think about generating traffic, but also think about converting that traffic to a dollar value, which can make everyone happy. So thinking about, for example, user intent and what is their search pattern, what exactly they're looking for on your website and how they consume content, how you should be presenting your content on your website and for any given topic that you're optimizing for, and what kind of depth they're looking for, factual correctness, content freshness, and all of that. And we have been speaking about site speed for years now, right? But I would say it's still a very important factor, not saying from an SEO perspective, but I'm just talking about user experience here. If you have a site which is loading fast, which is giving a nice experience to the user who's landing on your website, you would be able to convert them better. So therefore, search experience optimization is something you should be looking for, and you should not be missing on these parameters.
So one thing that was key to successful SEO in the past was rankings. Is rankings not so important for search experience optimization?
No, they are definitely. And in fact, if you're ranking with the landing pages and not able to serve the best experience, you would not be able to retain those rankings for longer. So if you want to rank and retain those rankings for longer, and of course, convert that traffic to, the value which you really care about, which is revenue, then I think you should think about experience, optimizing the overall experience. And if you're able to do that, you would see you are able to not just rank, but also able to retain those high rankings. And in fact, for the rankings which are not probably in top 3 or the premium positions, as they say, right, you would see you would gradually jump up if you're able to give the best experience to users.
Now, you only changed one word, search engine to search experience. Do you not think it's worthwhile perhaps even changing the whole term, the whole acronym, to something completely different so that we're not just talking about search here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can do that. It's just I've been using search engine optimization for quite some time, right? So thinking about, how we could think about not just pleasing search engines, but also thinking about experience optimization. Therefore, just mention search experience. But you're right. Yeah, absolutely. It's not about search experience. It's rather overall landing experience. It's about overall, experience on a website. So it can be probably called user experience optimization, and then adding a top layer, which is, SEO layer. So maybe somewhere between user experience optimization and also an element of SEO, which helps you understand, where the demand is and how you can, supply for that.
Interesting. So the ultimate aim is still to get people to your website. You're not satisfied, for instance, if people find your content and interact with your content on other platforms entirely, maybe YouTube or other social platforms?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I tell you why.
Yeah.
I'm just considering another term, ODO, Organic Discovery Optimization. So instead of actually relying on search engines, it's the optimizing of any touch point where users can find you, and that's not necessarily a search engine. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, 100%. I think I love that term. And I would definitely be more inclined towards that, which is optimizing for organic discovery. Yeah, 100%. I think that's pretty good because nowadays, whenever we talk about organic, whenever we talk about SEO, we know there are many other parameters, YouTube and social as well. So they can also chip in when you're talking about organic discovery optimization. So I'm 100%, up for that.
Okay, great. Okay, I might have coined a new term there. You heard it here first on SEO in 2025 by Majestic.
Yeah.
So let's focus on the user intent aspects of what you were talking about there as well, because experience is a lot about user intent, isn't it? So why is optimizing for user intent, behavior, and expectations important in the new landscape of SEO?
Yeah, I think in optimizing for user intent was always important, right? But I think it has become more and more important because now there are a lot of brands, right? I mean, writing a content with the help of AI, for example, is not difficult, right? You can build your content process in a week, right? Which generates kind of unique content, helping your users. But understanding what your users are looking for, a given topic on your website, on your brand, is something you should be able to understand. If you're not able to understand, you would never be able to write content, plan content, structure content for them. And this is very important. And once you understand what they're looking for, what is their intent, right? The kind of depth they're expecting on your website, you can plan your content, you can structure it better, and then you would be able to easily convert that traffic to the ultimate value you're looking for, which is revenue in most of the cases, right? And if you don't do that, you might see, that users are gradually losing trust on your website. So I think that's very important. And when I'm talking about intent, I'm also implicitly, talking about factual correctness of your content and freshness of the content as well. Because a user who's landing on a website, for example, let's say you're a travel brand and you are selling tickets from A to B. If someone lands on a website, you have amazing content, covers everything that you're looking for, right? But the content is not correct. They see, for example, 50 euros from A to B. When they click on that, the price changes to 70 euros. So the content is not fresh enough, right? Maybe you are just caching some content which is not getting refreshed, frequently enough. And that breaks the experience. That also breaks the trust gradually. So I think understanding what their intent is, what they're looking for for that particular topic on your website is very important. And therefore, understanding intent and optimizing for that is important.
Absolutely. And I'm going to have a go at my paid search friends here as well, because I think paid search is even worse for this. You see ads for very specific things, and then you click through the ads and you just go through to a homepage or a category page, or you can't find the specifics of what you found in the ads. So we all need to get better at this.
Absolutely. When I was working at Omeo, I had like a similar experience. We were also caching, but for how long do we cache? We had 200,000 pages when I started, and then we grew them to 1 million landing pages. But if we keep changing that price for all 1 million pages, that's a very expensive affair for our servers, right? We cannot do that, right? So, but how do we find that number? Like how often we should be refreshing that content, and should be doing that or on its own, or whenever someone searches for that, we can replace the values with the most accurate values. So there are a lot of different mechanisms to do that. But yeah, doing that is very, very important. In fact, recently I was working with a brand, a massive brand. They were doing a pretty good and generating like millions of organic sessions a month. The problem with that, their content was they had content which was very heavy on text. So they were happy, they were pleasing search engine bots, and it worked for some time. But then they started seeing, flat organic growth trajectory. And when we started working together, I told them this is the number one thing that we need to fix. We need to think about what users are looking for and how we should be optimizing the structure of this content, how we should be bringing in some visual content as well, right? Because if it's too text heavy, no one is going to read that. So we ran some experiments to understand how many people are actually scrolling down to the bottom to read this content. And the answer was like, 1.3% or something, right? Which is really bad. So they were able to please search engine bots because they had good amount of content on the landing pages, roughly 2000 words on an average, right? And they managed to rank for some period, but after that it was flat. And then they were concerned like, hey, we are stuck on rank 3, rank 2. We are not able to go up, right? And in some cases, we are also losing those ranks. But the answer is they were never optimizing for user experience. They were only thinking about pleasing search engine bots, right? In the process, if they were making some users happy, yeah, it was happening on its own, but there was no deliberate action done for that. So yeah, that's my take on that.
So what comes first? Is it user intent or content? So I'm thinking in the planning process, do you establish user intent and then research content that fits that user intent, or do you decide on the content and keyword that needs to be published first and then determine the user intent for that?
No, I think 100%. So I would start with keyword research here. So I would follow like the traditional process where we start with keyword research. However, it's important to understand what those keywords mean. because one keyword can also mean, that it's more transactional in nature. The same keyword can also mean it's informational. So understanding what exactly people are looking for from that keyword is important. So another example, when we were working at Omeo, so there, we had landing pages, let's say London to Paris, right? So we know when we did our research, we got to know there are a lot of people who are searching for fastest connections. There are people who are searching for what is the next train from London to Paris, right? There are people who are searching for cheapest connections as well. So understanding all of those intents, if we had just one landing page for all of these intents, it was really becoming difficult for us, like what to show first. If you're searching for fastest connections and we show, hey, you are on the right page, we have the cheapest deals for you, you might not be looking for that. If you're looking for next immediate connection, right? If we tell you that, hey, the fastest connection is just, let's say, 3 hours, right? But it's after 6 hours, right? The next train, you might not be looking for that at that point of time. So understanding your intent, what exactly you're looking for, and how we can present that information is very important. So what we did in this case was we had different tabs, right? And we were able to show a quick snippet of all of these three intents which we were covering on that landing page. We also ran another experiment where we had separate landing pages for all the different intents. That also gave us good results, right? But yes, I think it's very important that you start with the basics, keyword research, for example, right? And then you start experimenting. And those experiments will give you the actual content, how users are perceiving the content that you have on the landing page. And then you can optimize for that. So optimizing for search experience is not one-time exercise. It is like a marathon. You keep on doing it. You keep optimizing. It never ends.
So everyone's talking about AI. Do you see any implications of the recent AI developments on search experience?
Oh, yes. I'm a big fan of AI because at BotPresso as well, we have been using AI for building a lot of different applications, from micro crawlers to amazing looking Python scripts, which are resolving a lot of good problems for us. Yeah, about the implications of recent AI developments on search experience, definitely. I think people have been have started using AI for example, content production, which is the most common use case, right? However, what they miss is the personalization element, right? So this content, you are giving some instructions to machines, getting some content, but that content is generic. The content is, if you're doing it right, you'll get pretty good content. However, is that content personalized? Is that written for your brand, right? Is that written for the users that you are getting on your brand? That's very important to understand. So how you can give that personalized experience, how you can talk to your user when they're landing on a website is very important. And also, recently we started running some experiments where we're using RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, right? So, for example, let's say your TripAdvisor. So that's an example which I recently posted on LinkedIn as well. So what they do is they have reviews, a lot of them, a lot of user generated content. What they're doing is they're using that content to create a quick summary to help a user understand about everything that they have, which is pretty solid, right? You don't have to go through 500 comments to understand, about a particular place, for instance, right? You can just go and see a summary, what people like it, right? What they don't. And I've seen like a lot of other brands have started doing this as well. Amazon.
Yeah, I was going to say that with Amazon. I like the fact that they're looking at reviews and then just giving you a quick snapshot of what people thought of that particular product.
Yeah, exactly. So I love that. And I think you would see like a lot of brands. So I'm like investing a lot of time, on travel brands. So I see there are brands where you can see, okay, I'm traveling to Paris, give me recommendations only, for family friendly travel there, right? You would see all the reviews which are family friendly. They are aggregated and they give you a nice summary that, hey, if you're traveling with, family, you have younger kids with you, these are some tips for you. That's awesome. I don't have to go through, all the reviews or even filter out reviews to see, what is important for me and what is not. So yes, I think personalizing that and helping a user understand better of your content, I think that's really important. That's where AI can help you a lot.
If an SEO is struggling for time, what should they stop doing right now so they can spend more time doing what you suggest in 2025?
Yeah, well, I would say like stop chasing for those shiny stones. So every now and then people are talking about things. For example, even site speed, right? I just mentioned that site speed is important. I would still say that. However, like a couple of years back, it became the topic of the year, right? Everyone was talking about site speed and they were chasing, how they can go from 90 to 100. I would say stop chasing that, right? Think about user experience. If you think even at speed of 90 or 80 or whatever, right? If you are able to serve an amazing experience to users, I think that is the most important thing, right? So I would say stop chasing, these fancy and shining stones, and even for content production as well, right? So there is a lot of discussion about, whether AI generated content is good or bad, right? I would say you go and check Google's guidelines. They say if you're writing this content, which is meaningful, which is, not just written for search engine bots, right? But for the experience, this is good enough. So think about how you can use machines as your efficiency weapon and not to, abuse or, kind of manipulate search engine bots. So if you do that, I think that is all you need. So think about search experience, think about your user, keep them in center while working on your SEO strategy, and that is all you need.
Nitin Manchanda is founder and chief SEO consultant at Botpresso, and you can find him over at botpresso.com. Nitin, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2025.
Thank you so much, David, for having me here. It's a pleasure.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2025, the book, over at SEOin2025.com.